Hey guys, this is going to be your first video for the week of March 15th. This week we're going to be in our new reading booklets. This will be Unit 7, Week 1. In our new reading booklets, you will notice the title is Investigating the Past. And our essential question asks, how does understanding the past shape the future? When we think about the past, we understand that we have to learn about our past. When we learn about the things that happened in the past, it can give us ideas about what to do in the future. When we think about past accomplishments of people in the past, people that have invented different things, or people that have had different achievements over time, we can use their ideas and think about our future and how to better our future. Technology is always improving. And when we think about technology, different people have used ideas and investigations that people have done in the past to help make improvements on those and invent new things for our future. This week, we're going to be looking at some stories from the past, and we're going to think about what we can learn from these stories. This week, we're going to be on page 4 and 5 in your reading booklet. The title of this story is called The Oregon Trail. This week, we have 6 new vocabulary words, and they are going to be on your word study sheet. So, as we read, we're going to identify the vocabulary words and see if we can decide what they mean from the reading in the text. We're also going to be talking about a letter. If you notice, this story on page 4 and 5 is written a little different than a normal story. We have the title, The Oregon Trail, but I can already notice things on the page that stand out that look different from a regular story. There is a date, and there are entries on the page for different dates. And I notice the words Dear Diary. Anytime I see the words dear, I know that I'm going to be writing a letter, especially when it looks like this. So I have noticed the date. I've noticed Dear Diary. Dear Diary is called Dear Diary is called the greeting. The greeting tells us who the letter is to, and it's a hello. This part of the story this part of the letter is called the body. This is where we find the information that we're going to learn about. And then I noticed the last part says, Sincerely yours, Edith. Sincerely yours is our closing. It's a way to say goodbye. And then we have the name Edith. That's the person that wrote the letter. As I look around at the different letters, I see that they are all to diary. Dear diary, dear diary, dear diary. What is a diary? Right, a diary is a notebook or a booklet that we write our ideas down in. There's really not a person named Diary, but people write letters, and a lot of times they write down their thoughts and they just put it in the notebook and they write it to their diary because that's the name of the book they are writing it in. So they just say, Dear Diary, when they're writing a letter. At the end, we see there are different ways to close the letter. Sincerely yours. Look at this one. Yours truly. There's another yours truly. And this one says, as always. You could even put your friend. You know, when we wrote our letters to Santa, you got to put Dear Santa. So if you were writing the letter to a person, their name would go right here. Another thing that I want you to notice are the commas. The commas are very important. Where's my first comma that I see on the page? That's right there it is. May 17th, comma, 1849. The comma lets me know that I'm separating the day from the year. When I write a date, I always include a comma between the day and the year. Where's my next comma? Right there. Dear diary, comma. We always put a comma at the end of the greeting after the name. The next place I see a comma is in the closing. Sincerely yours, comma. I always end the letter with a closing, and at the end of the closing, I put a comma. I want you to also notice the capital letters. Dear is capitalized, and the name would have a capital letter, diary. If we were writing to Santa, Santa would have a capital letter. If we were writing a letter to our friend Mark, Mark would be right here, and we would have a capital M for Mark. Our next part, the closing, begins with a capital letter also. And the name, again, has a capital letter. So 2 important things to remember when you're writing a letter. Commas in the date, after the greeting, and after the closing, and capital letters. Capital in the month, a capital on dear, a capital for a name, and a capital on sincerely. As we read today, we're going to be thinking about finding some important words. First thing we're going to identify are our vocabulary words. So let's get started. The Oregon Trail, May 17th, 1849. Dear Diary, we've been on the Oregon Trail for 2 weeks. I'm exhausted. Papa and I walk while Mama and the baby ride. Papa says it's because our weight would be too much for the mules. Yours, sincerely yours, Edith. In this paragraph, I found 2 of our vocabulary words. The word exhausted is one. What does it mean to be exhausted? Exhausted. It says they've been on this trip for 2 weeks. That tells me that they are very tired. So when she says, I'm exhausted, I understand that that means tired. It also says they had to walk while the mother and the baby rode the mule. So that would also make them very tired. My next vocabulary word I see is the word sincerely. Sincerely is the closing part of our letter. It's just a friendly way to say goodbye. So sincerely is important because it ends the letter. Let's continue reading. June 29th, 1849. Dear Diary, rain, rain, and more rain. Now the trail is more like soup. Today our wagon got stuck in the mud. As a result, a wheel broke. It was another setback. Yours truly, Edith. I see 2 more vocabulary words in this paragraph. Result is the first one. What is a result? That's right. The results are the outcome, or what happens in the end, or what happens because of something else. Look at what's happening. It has rained, so there is mud, and their wagon got stuck in the mud. Because their wagon was stuck in the mud, the wheel broke. So the result of being stuck in the mud was having a broken wheel. So the results are the outcome, the ending, what happened. Another word I see that's important is the word setback. What is a setback? A setback is something that causes you to be delayed. In other words, it might make you later than you thought, or you might have to wait about something to finish. Look what's happened. They got stuck in the mud, the wheel broke, so they couldn't continue their trip. It was a setback, it was a delay. They had to wait, they had to fix it, and then go on later. So, a setback is anything that causes a problem or hinders you from continuing on what you're doing. Let's continue to page 5. July 14th, 1849. Dear Diary, sunrise brought a magnificent sight, a herd of buffalo grazing on the plain. Our provisions have been getting low, so we stopped at a Shoshone camp. We traded some good iron pans for other supplies. Yours truly, Edith. In this diary entry, I see the word magnificent. Magnificent. Magnificent is anything that is great or wonderful or beautiful. Because they had been out for so long, it was good to see the herd of buffalo grazing in the plain. That might also mean food for them to eat. That would be magnificent if you were hungry. And it says their provisions have been getting low. So they stopped to get supplies. Their provisions would be their supplies. So they might have been running out of food. So magnificent sight would be the buffalo to help feed them. Our next word that I see that's important is the word herd. A herd is a group of animals. Buffalo travel in a herd. They travel in a group. The word herd is important because it tells us the group of the animals. Other things can travel in a herd. There can be a herd of donkeys, a herd of cows. So different groups of animal are called different things. Buffalo travel in a herd. They travel in a group. Our last diary entry says, August 1st, 1849. Dear Diary, we have arrived at Soda Springs. The water has bubbles in it like soda water. We're going to stay here for an extra day because we need the rest. We can bathe in the hot springs. Mama says the steaming water is great for making bread. As always, Edith. As I look at this story, I can see 6 vocabulary words that were very important. We found the word exhausted, sincerely, result, setback, magnificent, and herd. But I also saw a couple of other words that were important. This week, our spelling words are compound words. Compound word is when you take 2 separate words and put them together to make one new word, like the word seashell. Seashell is made up of 2 words, sea and shell. I can put them together to make one new word, but I can also divide it down the middle and separate them and still have 2 words. That means it's a compound word. Can you think of any other compound words? That's right. There's lots of them. Rainbow, sunset, all kinds of compound words. I found 2 in our story. Did you find any compound words in our story? One is on page 4 and one is on page 5. Right here, the word setback. Setback is a compound word. It's made up of two words, set and back, put together to make one new word. Where's another one? Right here. Sunrise. Sunrise is a compound word because it's made up of two words, sun and rise. Good job. As we read this week, we're going to be looking for more compound words so you can see if you find those in the next stories as well. I want to talk about one more thing about this story before we close. As I look at this story, I can tell by the title and I can look at the pictures and I can tell that this story definitely took place in the past. When I see the pictures, I see wagons that are covered and they're pulled by mules or donkeys or horses. And this diary entry tells me that these people are traveling and they are traveling by wagon and by foot. They're walking. So this tells me this story must have taken place in the past because today, how do people travel? Right, in a car, on a plane, on a bus, on a ship, lots of different ways. This story happened in the past. This is a story of the Oregon Trail. The Oregon Trail was a trip that settlers took when they wanted to settle the land out west. So people gathered their belongings and their things, they packed them in a wagon with their supplies, and they traveled all the way across the United States. And they were looking for new land and a new start. And they were trying to settle the land that was wilderness out west. And as they traveled along the way, they had many hardships. Imagine having to walk that many miles and travel that far. Lots of times they ran out of supplies, they didn't have what they needed. Sometimes their feet froze because they were so cold and they ran out of shoes. It was snow on the ground, or they were sick from different kinds of diseases that they caught. Lots of people died along the way. Sometimes they had to get rid of some of their supplies and just dump it out because they didn't have enough room on their wagon to carry everything. The load was too heavy. So they had to just dump some of their supplies so they could keep going. It was a very hard time in history, but this is one of the things that happened in our past. As I look at this story, I can tell the main topic is the Oregon Trail. That's what this story is mostly about. Remember, when we're finding the main topic, we look at the title, we look at the subtitles, we might even look at the features on the page, like the pictures or any other graphic features that we see. These things give us a clue as to what we're going to be reading about. Next, we read the story. And as we read, we're looking for information in the beginning and throughout the story that might be mentioned over and over again, or that might explain something for us. And when I finish reading, I want to ask myself the question, what was this text mostly about? Well, I think it was mostly about the Oregon Trail. The title gives us a hint. And as we go through the story, let's look for some key details that back up or support our main topic, the Oregon Trail. What's a key detail in this first paragraph that tells us more about the Oregon Trail? Well, first thing I see is that it was a long trip and made them very tired, right? Because they had to walk, they were tired. It was a long trip, and many people were tired. That's the most important thing in this paragraph. Let's look for the most important thing in the second paragraph. When I read this one, it talks about the rain, but it also talks about the setback that happened with the broken wheel. So I know by reading this paragraph that they had setbacks along the way of the Oregon Trail. Getting stuck in the mud and having a broken wheel would have been one of the problems that people might have had along the way. As I look at the third paragraph, I noticed that people were running low of supplies. That could have been a problem too. So they would trade with other people for supplies for what they needed. And they might look for buffalo to eat along the way or anything else to help them have what they need. So, running low of supplies is another detail about the Oregon Trail or another problem that they might have had. In the last paragraph, I can look and see that they found water. So they have found a place where they can bathe. You know, most people bathe in a bathroom, in a bathtub. If you're outside and you're traveling, you're not going to have that. So, one of the problems was finding water and having a place to bathe. So, this tells me they were able to find that and they were excited. So, from this story, I can tell the Oregon Trail had many problems. It made people tired. People had setbacks like a broken wheel or getting stuck. People also might have ran low of supplies and had to trade for things they needed. And they might not have had a good, clean place to bathe. So these details help tell us more about what it was like on the Oregon Trail. As I read, I want to look for the main topic and the key details in the story to help me understand the story better. We're going to continue learning about that this week. I'll see you next time.